Who do you think would be the perfect woman to be a regular pro-Trump voice on The View? I can think of a lot. I've got a lot of friends who would be great at it, but I wouldn't wish it on any of them. We've mentioned before that the biggest loser coming out of last week's presidential election was, well, Kamala Harris. My God, what a soul-destroying defeat. I mean, absolute, total humiliation. Awful, just the worst, right? But even beyond her, probably the biggest loser was the corporate-owned legacy media. You know, the same media that continues to get it wrong election cycle after election cycle after election cycle, who continue to live in their bubbles in Washington, D.C. and in New York, and they refuse to even allow your opinion, your voice, your perspective, your point of view to be seen or heard on their little panels, right? Or if they let one person on, it's 8-1, right? I mean, a perfect example of this is the daytime ABC news program known as The View. We all know The View. We love The View. We talk about The View all the time. We like to hate watch The View. And I love to remind everybody that The View is, in fact, an ABC news program. No, it's not part of the daytime television unit, you know, the unit at ABC that covers soap operas and game shows. No. And it's not ABC Entertainment. No, that's for prime time, right? No, it's part of ABC News. Whoopi Goldberg is just like George Stephanopoulos or David Muir. They're all part of the same family. They all do the same job. And it's pretty impressive that they call themselves The View, because on that show and at that table in that room, only one view is allowed. And their viewers only saw one view. And that was the propaganda from Kamala Harris's campaign and the Democrat Party. That was it. That was The View. And they've told their viewers that any other view is not only not welcome, but frankly is considered racist, bigoted, and completely out of bounds for polite conversation. Until now, apparently. Eric Daugherty is an assistant news director over at Florida Voice News. He covers elections there, and he is hearing from his sources that ABC is looking to bring in a pro-Trump voice to The View and other shows. He's quoting this also from reporting at the New York Post. They're actually trying to find room at the table for a woman sitting on The View that is pro-Trump. I'm curious who you think that person should be. It's got to be a woman, because The View is really only women allowed because, you know, inclusion and diversity. Who would you wish this upon? Who do you think should walk into that gaggle of what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to be polite without being polite. Let's just say angry women. Who would you wish this about? I'd love to hear it down in the comments or in the live chat. Who do you think would be the perfect woman to be a regular pro-Trump voice on The View? I can think of a lot. I've got a lot of friends who would be great at it, but I wouldn't wish it on any of them. They're better than that. And frankly, the inclusion of a pro-Trump voice on The View would only serve to actually boost that show's ratings and actually keep Joy Behar and Sunny Hostin employed for that much longer. And that's the last thing we want. I think The View should stay exactly the way it is so it can die a miserable, well-deserved death. That said, they're looking to spice things up. And listen, a good 7-figure deal for a conservative woman who is pro-Trump, you know, that would be a nice gig. So who do you think it should be? Let us know downstairs. The View, though, is not the only media entity that's facing an existential crisis right now because of the results of the last election. Take a look at this graphic, also courtesy of Eric Daugherty. Apparently, the primetime viewership for MSNBC is down 53% in the last week. 53%. That's more than half, boys and girls. Meanwhile, Fox is up about 20%. Now, part of this, of course, is because the MSNBC viewership was, well, stringing along through the campaign and hoping for the best, that their side would win. And by the way, the primetime hosts on MSNBC, from Rachel Maddow to Chris Hayes to Larry O'Donnell to Joy Reid, et cetera, they were all delivering happy talk to their viewers. Oh, Kamala's got this. Oh, sure, the polls say that it's close, but we've got a blue wall and she's going to make history. And so, of course, everybody's eating their popcorn and getting excited about their team, right? And then when their team loses, well, they're depressed and they don't want to keep tuning in because the news is bad news, number one. But number two, and I think more importantly, is that there's been a little bit of trust damaged between the news outlet, MSNBC, and their viewers. See, if you're watching and you're hearing from the smartest people in the room, like Joe and Mika and Rachel Maddow, that Trump's going to lose and there's no way he can win, and then suddenly Trump wins, well, why would you keep going back to that network to get the news? Because they are wrong. They are consistently wrong. And suddenly you start hearing people on that news network saying, well, yeah, people voted about the economy. And, we do have a problem on the border. And, ultimately they didn't do this. And maybe Joe Biden should have quit earlier. And maybe this and maybe that. And you're like, hey, where the hell were you for the last 3 months telling me all of this? I relied on you for news, for information, for analysis, for perspective. Up until the loss, you never told me how bad the economy was. Up until the loss, you didn't tell me that the border was a real problem. Now you're saying it? Well, if you're in the business of news, even if you're giving your opinion while delivering the news, you've got to have credibility. That's why sometimes I tell you things you probably don't want to hear me say. But it's because I have to have credibility with you. So now MSNBC is down 53%. And let me tell you something. I think it's even worse than that. You know why? Because on election night and the day after election, and even a couple of days leading up to the election, I know for a fact that pro-Trump conservatives, we were watching MSNBC because it was fun. We were watching it because we wanted to see their miserable defeat. MSNBC actually had a spike on election night. They actually, for the first time, had better viewership than CNN on an election night. Why? Because a whole bunch of conservatives were watching it and laughing at their meltdown. That's why. They got a bunch of viewers, not because they liked the programming, but because we wanted to mock them. So I'm guessing the drop is even worse than that because the numbers on election night were inflated a little bit bigger than they should have been. How bad are the primetime ratings right now at MSNBC? Break it down by show. Joy Reid is down 54.6%. Ari Melber, whoever that is down 49.6%. Chris Hayes, 47.2%. Alex Wagner, 53.6%. Morning Joe is down nearly 40 points from Election Day. Stephanie Rule, 67%. And Andrea Mitchell is down 39.7%. That's absolutely devastating. In fact, it's gotten so bad that on the quarterly earnings call for Comcast Universal, the CEO of Comcast, the corporation that owns MSNBC, made public their plans to sell off the cable news network. That's right. MSNBC is going to be sold. Who knows what the new branding will be? Who knows whether they'll be able to keep the name or the graphics or the peacock, since it's not going to be owned or affiliated with NBC anymore. In fact, there's already speculation that a conservative outlet could buy it. Jeremy Boring, the Grand Poobah, God King is his title over at Daily Wire. He's floated the idea that they might buy it. Dave Rubin, our fellow colleague and podcaster, has suggested that he has a plan to purchase it. Even Jack Posobiec over at Human Events has suggested maybe they'll gobble up the cable network. I don't know why anyone would buy it. I mean, I guess they've got equipment and some infrastructure, and maybe having access to cable lineups is worth something. Maybe some investors could come in and restand. Maybe we should call it Town Hall. It's a thought. Either way, it is for sale. We'll see if anyone wants to buy it or not. Meanwhile, things aren't that much better over at CNN. According to, is it Punchbowl? No, Puck News. According to Puck News, got to be careful how I say that. CNN plans a huge round of layoffs at the end of this year. By the way, real fast, just so you know, this is not uncommon in media companies, especially after a presidential election. There's a lot of hiring that goes on during a presidential election year. And then after the election, there's a lot of layoffs that happen. And it's happening in many aspects of the media, including my medium, talk radio, in Los Angeles at KFI, in New York at WOR, and various other stations around the country. There are layoffs happening. Thankfully, not at my radio station in Washington, D.C. I think that's because there's no one left to lay off. But there are a lot of layoffs in the media world. CNN, though, apparently is going through a devastating cost-cutting spree because they didn't quite get the ratings and revenue they were banking on this election year. According to Puck News, top stars are going to be laid off and hundreds of people will be fired. CNN is reportedly set to fire some of its top talent in a round of post-election layoffs. You know, Anderson Cooper makes $20 million a year. I just want CNN to know that I will do Anderson Cooper's job for half that. You're welcome. The rumblings, first reported by Puck News, came as high-paid personalities like Jake Tapper and Wolf Blitzer were reportedly recently denied raises. Oh, Jake, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine anybody who deserves a raise more than Jake Tapper. I mean, let's face it, he's going to be really busy during the Trump administration, repeating lies and anonymous leaks. I mean, that's not an easy job. The two already boast salaries of $7 million and $3 million, respectively, while stars like Anderson Cooper take home an annual $20 million. Caitlin Collins and Aaron Burnett also command inflated earnings, $3 million and $6 million apiece, respectively. Insiders told Puck the new round of firings will likely see on-air talent like them affected as the network's new CEO looks to free up finances amid waning ratings. Aw, couldn't have happened to a nicer group. I think CNN could be fixed. MSNBC is a lost cause, right? I mean, they staked their claim. They decided they were going to be the liberal version of Fox, which is boring, but they went ahead and did it. And they've got a very narrow viewership, mostly in New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, but not really much beyond that. Sort of like the Democratic Party and the Democrat candidate. It's fine, I suppose, but it's not enough to sustain an entire network. CNN still has a chance, I think, for a couple of reasons. First of all, CNN has an established brand that people remember from the good old days. It's where you would go for news, right? And then they got into the opinion business. Now, there was a time when CNN first ventured into the opinion business, and they were the place for debate. They had TV shows like Crossfire or The Capitol Gang and a couple of others that involved valid and well-informed debaters on both sides of the issue, the conservative side and the liberal side, and they would bring in guests and they would challenge each other. And if you liked healthy, intellectual, political debates, sometimes with some fireworks, CNN was the place for you. I used to watch those shows, and they had very credible voices, conservative voices that would represent my point of view and my perspective. Those voices are gone now. CNN doesn't have those voices on the air, even as guests, really, let alone as hosts of their own show. Yes, I know they've got Scott Jennings and they've got maybe one or two other conservatives who were trying to do their best, but for the most part, they're nowhere near what they used to be. CNN has a chance. Like I said, MSNBC is your liberal network. Fox News, for better or worse, I guess has continued to emerge as the conservative network. CNN could be the network for political debate. They could mix up their primetime shows with a liberal host for the 8 o'clock hour, and then they could have, a 9 o'clock conservative host a show. And it'd be interesting to see how the ratings go and which shows do better. The people will decide who they want to watch. They could gobble up a former Fox News host or somebody from Newsmax, or discover somebody who streams and give them a primetime show. Why not? I mean, you can't do any worse than you've done, can you? See, nobody is going to buy CNN trying to go back to its roots and saying, all right, we're out of the opinion business. We're just going to deliver the news now, because it's still going to be news delivered by Anderson Cooper and Jake Tapper and Wolf Blitzer. Well, we know who you are. I'm sorry. You've done the Tom Cruise thing where you take the rubber mask off. We know exactly who you are. You can't now pretend that you're just going to deliver the news and the facts. Fine. Own your opinions. Just counterbalance those opinions with me and with other conservatives who can engage in a debate, either one-on-one on the same show or independently. Have your Anderson Cooper liberal hour and then have your Larry O'Connor conservative hour, or someone else. It doesn't have to be me. I'm just doing that as an example. I'm not looking for a gig, I promise. But that actually could be interesting. that could be a lively cable news channel that doesn't take sides all the way in one direction or the other, but actually offers to the audience both perspectives in a highly informed, energetic, and entertaining way, and then let the people decide. I would watch a good liberal cable news show if I knew that that host didn't hate me. That's all I ask. And I think you'd do the same. CNN could totally save themselves if they want to. And the fact that they don't, well, sort of tells you they don't. Quick story, just between us. I got a phone call yesterday from a guy I used to work with. He used to be a radio producer in New York. And before I got my job in DC, I used to be like a guest host. A lot of radio hosts, before they get a permanent gig, they're guest hosts for holidays, whatever, vacations. So I used to be a guest host for a prominent talk radio station in New York. And I knew this guy as a producer. Now, subsequently, he left there and became a producer at CNN. He worked on various day parts at CNN, and now he works for one of the primetime shows. And he calls me out of the blue. I'm like, wow, I haven't heard from this guy in a while. So I called it, picked up the phone. We start chatting, and he's like, listen, we're looking to expand our perspectives on the show, and we were just wondering if you were available to, do some panels with us and maybe do some guest hits on the show on CNN. And I was like, "Oh, really? Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're really looking to sort of bring in some more pro-Trump voices and let them be heard, and make sure that everybody's opinion is being reflected." And this guy's a good guy, by the way. It's not him, right? And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, geez, what took you so long, CNN, to think that maybe that's something you should be doing for your viewers, to not repel people and basically pretend like anyone who doesn't agree with your host is a pariah that should be avoided on Thanksgiving dinner. So I was talking to him and I said, well, listen, I'd love to do that, but I do the morning show now, which means I got to wake up at like 3:15 in the morning. So it's kind of hard for me to do prime time, but listen, maybe on a Friday or something, I'll do that. So I might. I haven't decided yet. In fact, if you think I should do a CNN hit, let me know. When he does call me back, though, and asks if I can go on CNN, I'm going to say, oh, great. That's cool. What are you paying? And just wait for the pause. You see, unless you're actually hired as a contributor at a cable news network, if you're just a guest to lend your opinion, you don't get paid anything. I used to do that a lot at Fox News. It's good for your visibility. It's fun. I used to go on Tucker's show a lot. I used to do Red Eye with Greg Gutfeld. I used to do Shannon Bream's show quite a bit. Back when I wasn't doing mornings, I would be on Fox and Friend. There's clips of me out there. You can see it. I used to like doing that. And it's good exposure. And it's fun to hang out at Fox News with people that you know and you like. But I'll be honest. After a while, it becomes a grind. And doing it for free, well, you really have to evaluate what you're getting out of it, right? Fox News has called me subsequently, and honestly, I haven't been available or have done anything with Fox News in a while because it's just a pain, to be honest, if you're not getting paid. Now, I'm fortunate, and I don't mean to sound like I'm a snob or anything, but I don't really need the exposure at this point. But CNN, if CNN calls me and asks me to do a free hit on their network, why in the hell would I do it? First of all, who's watching CNN right now? And even if I do it, do you realize how damaged that brand is for my audience, for my following? At this point, if you're a conservative and you show up on CNN, you're viewed with some level of suspicion. Why are you going on that channel? Right? I mean, Scott Jennings is there, but he does get paid. That's his gig. CNN hired him to do that. And if they're looking to pay me, I will consider it. Even then. Oh, one other item about the death of the media after last week's election. Check this out. Not only is MSNBC's ratings in the toilet and they're for sale, not only is CNN's ratings in the toilet and now they're facing layoffs and looking to expand their audience by bringing people like me in. One other thing, the Washington Post, the owner of the Washington Post, is now apparently telling the newspaper that they have to add more conservative opinion writers at the paper. That's according to the New York Post. Wow. Yeah, that'll do it. I know I'll start subscribing to the Washington Post if they start having columns by anyone other than Jennifer Rubin. Or maybe I won't. Well, we can now exhale, right? Take that deep breath. Our side won. Work can finally be done on the major issues this country is facing. And one of the most significant is our national debt. The fact is, our country is broke. And that debt is a house of cards that can't quickly be dismantled. So the strategy remains the same now for you personally. Diversify your savings. So many things are out of our control, even out of President Trump's control, frankly. It's important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group, they'll help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA of physical gold. And the best news is it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898. Get a free info kit on gold. And right now, listen to this offer. Right now, between now and Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, you're going to get a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. Diversify your savings with Birch Gold. Text Larry, Larry, to 989898. Claim your eligibility for free silver today.